Hello, welcome back to the Gray Couch, where today we'll be bringing the crucible to your couch, talking about RSOI. Once again, I'm Colonel John Ives, coming to you from Fort Polk, Louisiana. I'm your Senior Intelligence Observer, Coach, and Trainer. Now, why do we want to talk about RSOI? Well, first off, a lot of S2s don't pay attention to RSOI. They think that it's a commander's problem, or worse, they think it's just the logistician's problem. They try to give it to the S4 or the HHC commander, and they say that's their problem. I'm going to focus on intelligence. But when is intelligence not the problem of the entire staff and the commander? So if it's your commander's focus or it's your S4's focus, then intelligence should, by definition, be providing something for that one. So let me set conditions for you. At JRTC, you're going to show up and you're going to have multiple pieces of equipment flowing in via train, lowboy, flown in, whatever it might be. You're going to have people flowing in over multiple days in multiple different flights, hand-carrying laptops and crypto and whatever else it is that they're bringing in. And then you're going to have all kinds of different training happening simultaneously. Your people are going to get pulled in multiple different directions. So, for example, let's just take all the soldiers in the MICO as one example. They're going to be pulled in the go get the vehicles and go get the containers. And so you're going to have people that are focusing on that one. You're going to have other people that are going to be trying to put on miles and zero their weapon systems through miles. All that's happening at the same time that the S2 is saying, I want to be focusing on intelligence. Keeping in mind that you get issued the op order on R6, the evening of R6 usually. And from really about that point on, you are in the fight trying to do intelligence. So if that's the first time you're starting to ask the questions about RSOI, then you've missed the boat. Pardon the pun. Here's a few traps organizations fall into. First off, they're not sure where all their intel stuff is, meaning they don't know what train it's coming in on or they don't know what container it's in. Worse, they know what container it's in, but they're not sure where it is in the container. So another trap they run into is they look at the 1750 on the outside of the container and they say, hey, this is where our GUINT workstations are located, for example. And so they open it up and it's actually 35 duffel bags and another 20 ubiquitous gorilla boxes in the back. And so they pull everything out, but there's no 1750s on each of those boxes to tell you where everything is. And so that becomes an issue of, well, we got the container, but it took us an extra hour and a half to find out which small box inside that container was the one we needed. Another trap they run into is the prioritization of their people and their equipment to ensure synchronization of those two items. So for example, you get your TGS, you accurately projected that you needed your TGS there on time or early in RSOI, but then it arrives, but your people are on the last flight coming in on R9, in which case it did you no good to have the equipment there. The other one that they run into is they see RSOI as, like I said, being a logistics problem or a commander problem, and therefore they provide no intelligence support to the logistics team leading up to it. As a result, logistics has to show up and try to recreate how they want to do things on the ground, which ends up costing the entire process an extra day or two of just trying to get the lay of the land, understand the terrain and weather effects. And then, of course, there's no training going on of what is the OPSEC problem that you have, because you do have an OPSEC problem. Geronimo is already watching you. So that's one thing. And then, of course, the last one, and probably one of the ones that is the indicator of a larger problem, is you don't have the DSIGs established when the data starts flowing. And I think we've talked about that in a previous episode. And if you don't have the DSIGs up and operational on R6, then you're missing out on 12, 1,500, 1,800 entities by the time you roll into the box. So what can you do about all of these things? I've shown you some trends, given you some issues. First off, operationalize RSOI. It's not something that happens to you, it's something you're supposed to execute. So if it's something your commander's executing, then as two, you should be supporting it. And try to make things happen for yourself. For example, the first thing you can do is you can actually pack your containers to match what it is that you need. So for example, the last thing that goes into the container ends up being the first thing that comes out. So if it's something you need as soon as the container arrives, put it at the front of the container. A lot of organizations, they push all of their boxes into the back of the container, and then they start loading whatever ash and trash they have at the last minute, to include soldiers' bags, personal items, whatever it might be, goes into the front of the Connex, so that when the Connex arrives, they pull all of that ash and trash out first. Then they finally grab the boxes they need. Then they got to put all the ash and trash back in there. And then they realize, oh, part of that stuff that we threw back in there was something we needed, because there wasn't actually a plan of how everything's going to come out. The next thing is looking at those 1750s. I know this is a total logistics nightmare, and your XOs are probably handling this, your HHC commanders, your MICO commanders, they're all on top of it. But you as an S2 can help lead this fight. Remember that you're a leader through influence inside of your battalion or inside your brigade. So what can you do to influence that is making sure that the 1750 on the outside of the container matches what's inside the container, obviously, but then the boxes themselves that you put inside the container can have a 1750 that identifies what's inside that box. So when you say, I need the box that's talking about the GUNT workstations, they can go in and actually find that box and bring it out and bring it to you without you having to be throwing duffel bags for 45 minutes to an hour before you actually find the box you need, and then have to throw all the duffel bags back into the Connex in order for you to walk away. You can do this for yourself, but you can also label your items with bigger letters. GWS on the side of your ubiquitous Gorilla box, for example, makes it very simple. So you kind of have to think your way through this stuff, but this is not intelligence. This is the basics of Army life. Right? The next thing you can do, work with your S3 and your S4, your HHC commander, your MICO commander, to try and synchronize when people and equipment arrive. Like I said, one of the issues is the piece of equipment arrives, but the person who operates it doesn't arrive until much later. Try and get those so they overlay on top of each other. If the train full of equipment starts arriving here, and you know your SIGINT platform is going to be on there, and you know, after riding around on that train track for however many days, it's going to jar something loose, it's going to take you some time to fix it. You need to get your team there as soon as possible to be a part of that, fixing it. That means you can't have all of your shadow maintenance team arriving on R9, but yet you successfully prioritized all of your shadow equipment and your pilots to arrive here. Well, the pilots pull it all out and they start to set it up and realize there's an issue, but the maintenance people don't arrive for a couple more days. It's just deadline for a couple of days. Now, the next one is you can start providing intel about RSOI prior to the execution. Now, you're going to receive the order. You already know when you're coming to JRTC, year and a half, 2 years out. As you get closer to it, they'll tell you how your RSOI is going to look. Pay attention to those orders as well, because that's when you can start providing imagery, terrain analysis, weather and light analysis. Obviously, that's going to be a big deal. Train downloading has to stop at a certain point during the day or under certain weather conditions. At what point does a container become more difficult to unload because it's too dark? And so now you can start telling the logisticians, like, hey, let's see if we can't get lights here no later than this time to do X, Y, and Z so people can continue doing downloading. That's all stuff that you as an S2 can provide, whether at the battalion or the brigade level. It does not matter. And then, of course, the next point I want to bring up is training. Organizations kind of waste those first couple of days of RSOI, or really the entire RSOI, by not training their team on what they're going to face. Here's an example. One of your soldiers, say specialist, is going to be out on some sort of a defense, and he's going to have javelin. And part of the big plan, because you successfully identified that as a high-value target, a T-80 is a high-value target, is going to be coming down this road because you did good IPB. You know exactly when it's going to be there because you got that great event temp and that great event matrix. You put a shadow on top of it. You identified it because you have a great collection plan. And then that soldier with the javelin sets that puppy up and shoots the first BMP that comes down the road. And then the T-80 just keeps on driving. And why? Because they don't know the difference between a BMP and a T-80, a JRTC. So what's stopping you during RSOI for doing training? One of the things we used to do when I was a young S2, at one point I was young, we put up pictures of all the different weapon systems that were out there, the different uniforms, the different town names, all that good stuff. That was all located on a sheet that was easy to read, easy to understand. A picture of a T-80 from a couple of different angles, T-80. BMP, a couple different angles, BMP. We didn't have to give the whole, like, this is the range of it and this is how many people are in it. You can do that, but you don't have to. So what we did is we took the ones that were just the picture and the name of it, and we put it above all the urinals, and we put it inside all the latrines and in all the porta potties. Okay, yeah, everybody goes to those locations. Get over it. You can stop giggling now, warrant officers. Everybody goes to those locations, so why isn't that a best place to put some pictures of what the enemy looks like? Everybody's going to see it. Then you can do simple things like go into the chow hall or the DFAC or wherever it is the soldiers are at and just walk up to a table and say, hey, what is this? And show them a picture of a BMP and have them say, oh, it's a tank. And then you can go, no, it's not a tank. This is a BMP. Here's some characteristics of a BMP versus a tank. And you can show them 2 pictures. And you can do spot training like that on your way to get food. Take advantage of this opportunity, because in the heat of the battle, that last javelin shot that could have saved the day, you don't want it to be wasted because you didn't put up a picture over the urinal. Okay, operationalizing RSOI. Clearly important. Obviously, if you haven't operationalized RSOI, then you're not going to be prepared to do the MDMP for your first mission going into the box. You're so focused on, I understand offense, I understand defense, I can do an airborne operation. All those things are good, great, and dandy, but if you can't get your organization from the railhead to doing those operations, then you haven't done yourself any favors. So this concludes today's episode. I appreciate you stopping by to hang out with me on my gray couch. I'll see you on the next one. Be safe, be smart, go wash your hands.